There we go. All right. I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone to the hearing. I declare that we have everyone here and quorum. I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe under the terms of the Robertson-Huron Treaty number 61 of 1850 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunity, honor sacred places, and take action toward real truth and reconciliation. In support of our commitment to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations. And I have a motion. Moved by Brandon Stapleton, seconded by Helena Renwick. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment agenda dated February 16, 2022, be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? And that's carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I have another motion. Moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Jason Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes dated January 18, 2022, and the recommendations contained therein be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? And that's carried. All right. I'd like to welcome everyone to the public meetings to consider applications for minor variances to the zoning bylaw. The input received by agencies, public, and staff is important in order for the committee to make sound planning decisions. The procedure to be followed in these meetings will be as follows. A brief explanation of the application and any correspondence received to date will be given by staff. The applicant or the representative will be asked to provide any additional comments without repeating the information already outlined by staff. Any members of the public present will then be permitted to ask questions or provide comments respecting the applications. Any persons making representation are requested to first state their name and mailing address. Please note that presentations are limited to 10 minutes. Once the hearing is concluded, the input received will be considered by the committee prior to making a decision on the applications. If you wish to be notified of a decision of the committee, you must file a written request for notification. And before we move into our applications, I need to note that application A04 2022 HTE Rasmussen, and I'll brutalize that name. I'll just say that it's at 415 Hoodstown Road, and that application has been deferred. And with that, we'll move on to our first application. Madeline's going to speak to the Crocker application at 658 The Bitter End.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just take a second to set up my screen.
Okay.
Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Alrighty, perfect. Through you, Mr. Chair, the subject property is located at 658 The Bitter End. The lot is zoned Shoreline Residential 4 and Rural 2 under Huntsville's zoning bylaw and designated waterfront in Huntsville's official plan. The application has been submitted to permit the construction of a detached two-story garage on the portion of the property zoned Shoreline Residential 4. A minor variance is required to increase the maximum permitted total building area for a two-story garage from 60 meters squared to 90 meters squared. Based on the configuration of the property, the increase in total building area for the two-story garage is expected to have minimal impact on the surrounding properties as the garage is compliant with the required setbacks and the lot is densely vegetated outside of the building envelope. This will also result in no visual impact from the private road or water. The design of the garage is in keeping with the character of the surrounding area and reflects the scale of the dwelling. Additionally, the garage is proposed in the most appropriate location in an already cleared area with surrounding vegetation. Looking at the official plan, the waterfront designation anticipates low-density shoreline residential development that respects the character and natural setting of the waterfront area. In this instance, the proposed two-story garage is in conformity with the waterfront designation. I just wanted to take a moment to point out the first photo. This is showing the proposed location of the two-story garage, already cleared and surrounded with vegetation. Natural constraint mapping identifies steep slopes on a portion of the lot. As the garage is sited away from the steep slope areas, there are no concerns with respect to this natural constraint. The fish habitat abutting the shoreline is unevaluated. However, the proposed garage is set back over 30 meters from the shoreline of Skeleton Lake, so risks to any potential type 1 fish habitat are appropriately mitigated. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. 2 letters of support were provided for the application and provided to committee prior to the meeting. The building department had no objection. The application would appear to conform to the intent of the official plan and be consistent with the provincial policy statement. Additionally, the application appears to satisfy the 4 tests for a minor variance as set out in the Planning Act, and therefore staff are recommending approval. Thank you for your attention, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks very much. I will go to the applicant or their representative to make any comments.
The applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raise hand button to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I do see 1 hand raised.
Okay.
Please note that during the transition, your video panel will be momentarily interrupted. Once you've been added to the meeting, your video will appear in the committee member panel. Please have your microphone and video, if possible, turned on before you begin speaking, and confirm your name and mailing address.
Okay, can you see me? Are we on? All right.
You are.
I just not much to say except to thank you, Chair Stone and committee members. My name is Jeff Crocker. This is my wife, Vicky. We're at 658 The Bitter End, Utterson, POB 1MO. And I'm here to answer any questions. I think Madeline's done a great job at covering it all. And if there's anything you'd like to ask me, we'd be happy to answer.
All right. I'll ask that you stay with us, but if you can mute yourself and remove your video, I'm going to go to members of the public that would like to address this application.
Members of the public are reminded to use the raise hand button to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I see no hands raised.
All right, thank you. Committee members, do you have any comments or questions? Mr. Donald.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Stone. I think a question through you to Madeline. I note that the building is a 2-story detached garage. We didn't have a copy of the building details in our package, but I think from what I saw in your presentation, Madeline, it looks like there is a stairway to the 2nd story. Does that imply that there is living accommodation in the 2nd story, or is this okay in this instance? Can you comment on that, please?
Madeline?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Member Donald. There is a stairwell in the garage. However, the use for the 2nd story is for storage. There has been no indication that there will be living quarters on the 2nd story. If the applicant were to want to look into living quarters on that 2nd story, they would need relief to do so.
Mr. Donald?
Yeah, thank you. A follow-up to that. I note in other applications where there is a structure that has a 2nd story, that we stipulate that no residential accommodation will be permitted, but we're not doing that here. Is that something that we need to consider?
Madeline?
As of currently, I don't believe that any living quarters will be required on that 2nd story of the dwelling, and that is why conditions haven't been put in. The building department also had no comments that living quarters, there would be an objection to living quarters.
And if I may follow up, just so if they did, they would need special permits which would include septic and water. Is that correct?
So the applicant would be permitted through relief to have a private cabin on the second story of the garage. A secondary residential dwelling unit would not be permitted in the detached garage given the shoreline residential zoning.
So am I to understand it would just be living quarter, just be like a bunkie almost?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, and the applicants are here listening, so they understand that as well. Mr. Donald, do you have a follow-up? You're on mute.
Sorry, my unmute button didn't seem to work. My apologies. So just through you perhaps to Director Maxwell, is this consistent? The fact that we're not stipulating this constraint seems to be a little bit inconsistent from other applications that we've had to deal with in the past. And I think even in this session, we'll be considering another one. I just like us to be very clear whether we are going to permit, whether we are deliberately excluding accommodation in these type of structures, or whether this situation is slightly different, that we need to clarify that. Am I being a little bit too picky?
Through you, Chair Stone. I don't think you're being picky. No, not at all. We have in the past specifically noted that for the larger footprint of a garage, which this one is, which is why it needs the variance, that we wouldn't want a bunkie necessarily that large being part of the structure. We could add a condition saying that the second floor can't be used for habitable space if that made committee comfortable. We have in the past and then we haven't on occasion, so perhaps we have been a bit inconsistent with our recommendations.
Follow up again?
Then I would like to propose an amendment that the stipulation be added, that there be no residential accommodation permitted for this application.
Okay.
All right. Do you have a comment, Director Maxwell?
I was going to say I can work with Ms. Wolf, our administrative person, to make sure that we get that done. If you give us just a second, please.
Sure. Do we need a motion for this? Yes, so we'll need a seconder if we wish to do this. All right. Then we will wait while Julie works on this amendment. Should I play the Jeopardy theme song?
Or perhaps a little dance would be
I can do
sufficient.
that. You know I can. Ms. Renwick.
Chair Stone, this is more of a comment, and it was just something that when I was looking at this application as well, that I couldn't find the bitter end on a map, on a Google map. Anyway, just more of a comment. Chair Stone actually did help me out to I think he went to the actual zoning map of the town to find the location, but so I did find it eventually, but it was difficult to find where it is. So, but yeah, more of a comment.
I agree, and I would ask that staff make it a little easier in our package to identify where these properties are. I know we get the actual, 50 meters on either side of the property. If we could have a more general location, it would help us understand as well.
Thank you.
Julie, are you ready to go?
Yes, I am. I was just going to note through you, Chair Stone, that I'm just putting the amendment up in a slightly different way through a red line version. So it's just to speed the process up a little bit. And then if that is, it would still be voted on. And then if it is carried, I'll just show the new corrected version as well to follow for you to vote on that one as well. So I'll share that right now.
Okay. There we go. All right, so we need to move this particular amendment.
That's right. Did you, if I may, Chair, so did we move and second the original motion already? Because we may want to, I think we'll have to address that first. So the original motion would need the mover and seconder, and also read the language of the original motion, and then we can move to the amendment on that.
All right. So you want me to read the original motion?
Yes, if you'd like
Right.
me to share it, I can do that as well.
No, I've got it right here. So moved by Helena Renwick, seconded by Brandon Stapleton, be it resolved that minor variance application A02 2022 HTE be approved. Purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 3.1.15.3C to permit an increase in building area of a two-story detached garage from 60 square meters to 90 square meters. And now, as an amendment, moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Brandon Stapleton, there be an additional condition that no habitable space shall be permitted in the dwelling. All in favor of that motion?
So we're voting for the amended motion.
Correct.
Thank
The
you.
amendment itself.
Thank you.
All right, so that is carried. So now I will read the amended motion. If Julie can put that back up. So moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Brandon Stapleton, be it resolved that minor variance application A02 2022 HTE be approved. Purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 3.1.15.3C to permit the increase in building area of a two-story detached garage from 60 square meters to 90 square meters, conditional on no habitable space being permitted within the detached garage. Comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. All right. Thank you. And now we're going to move on. Kelsey's going to speak to the Williams application at 51 Wilson Drive.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just prepare my screen. Great. Is everyone able to see that?
Yes, we are.
Awesome. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, the subject property is located at 51 Wilson Drive. The lot is designated waterfront and is zoned shoreline residential 1. The application has been submitted to permit the construction of a 199.7 square meter single detached dwelling. The minor variance is required to reduce the interior side yard setback from 6 meters to 3.05 meters for the dwelling, increase primary lot coverage from 10 to 12.85%, and increase accessory lot coverage from 5% to 6.90%. The existing dwelling, garage, and private cabin are to be demolished. The garage will also be replaced with a utility shed with a smaller footprint, and the existing legal non-conforming boathouse and dock will be retained. So I've just prepared an animation to show what's new. So that's in purple, what's being demolished, which is in red, and then what's there and is remaining. So the increased primary lot coverage is required because the subject property is an existing undersized lot. Additionally, it is a small increase from the existing primary lot coverage, but more appropriately sited outside of the shoreline buffer. The existing accessory lot coverage is being reduced by the removal of the private cabin and the replacement of the garage with a smaller utility shed. Therefore, the resulting accessory lot coverage will reflect the existing non-complying boathouse and dock, and smaller utility shed, improving accessory lot coverage. Looking at the official plan guidelines, which promote development of buildings that are sited most appropriately on areas of the lot, limited in terms of mass and coverage and frontage on the property, and designed in keeping with the character of the surrounding area. In this instance, the proposal is going to demolish the existing dwelling, which is situated 6.9 meters from the shoreline, and position the new dwelling 20 meters back. With the relocation, development in proximity to the shoreline and associated environmental and visual impacts will be reduced. Additionally, the project will bring the amenity area into closer compliance with the required cumulative width by vegetating the area of the existing dwelling, the former existing dwelling, fire pit, and the legal non-conforming boathouse and dock will remain. However, the planned revegetation creates a net improvement for the shoreline. It's worth noting that the property abuts the CN rail corridor. The applicant consulted with CN, who noted that the proposed development was acceptable and recommended rail noise, vibration, and safety impact mitigation measures, which reflect the measures from the official plan and would be implemented through site plan control should the minor variance be approved. Natural constraint mapping identifies unevaluated fish habitat, stratum 1 deer yard, and steep slope areas. A scoped environmental impact study was provided to address the natural constraint. The report concludes no negative impacts will occur provided the technical recommendations are implemented, which include installing a sediment fence, minimizing area of exposed soil, revegetation around the shoreline buffer and disturbed areas, and retaining existing vegetation. These recommendations will also be implemented through site plan control should the minor variance be approved. The scoped environmental impact study also looked at the deer wintering habitat and steep slopes. Based on the site visit, the report's author suggested it's unlikely that white-tailed deer use this property during the winter, and it does not meet the requirements of stratum 1 habitat. The report also evaluated the slopes and identified that the proposed dwelling and relocated utility shed will be set back less than 15 meters from the identified top of bank. However, the official plan notes that a reduction may be granted if a technical report demonstrates a lesser setback is warranted. In this case, the report evaluates the slopes and the proposed development and determine with vegetation retention and enhancements will be sufficient to mitigate any potential risk. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act into the Lake Vernon Association. The Lake Vernon Association provided support for the application as it addressed the current site deficiencies and shoreline setbacks. The building department provided comments that they require further details about the septic location. This will be further reviewed via site plan control. The application would appear to conform with the intent of the official plan and be consistent with the provincial policy statement. Additionally, the application appears to satisfy the 4 tests of a minor variance, and therefore staff are recommending approval. Thank you so much, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much, Kelsey. I would just like to mention that the drawing submitted by the applicant was very confusing for committee to read. Your colored circles did help right now. If you could, in future, do something similar in our package to help us with those that are very confusing. With that, I will go to the applicant or the representative to speak to this.
The applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raise hand button to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I do see one hand raised.
Okay.
A reminder to please have your microphone and video, if possible, turned on before you begin speaking, and confirm your name and mailing address.
Hello,
Oh, hello, committee members. Can you see me?
I can.
Oh, hello. My name is Mike Williams, 51 Wilson Drive, Huntsville, Ontario, P1H2J2. Thank you for hearing my application. Kelsey did a very good job of explaining my my intentions. And if anybody has any questions in any way, please feel free to ask.
Perfect. Then I'll ask you to stay with us, but if you can mute yourself and take your video down, I'm going to go to the public and see if there's any comments or questions from the public.
Members of the public are reminded to use the raise hand button to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I see no hands raised.
All right, committee members, any comments or questions? All right. Moved by Jason Fitzgerald, seconded by Kenneth Donald. Be it resolved that minor variance application A03-2022 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsections 3.1.6 and 5.3.4, 5, and 7 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P in order to reduce the interior side yard setback from 6 meters to 3 meters for a single detached dwelling, increase the primary lot coverage from 10% to 12.85%, and increase the accessory lot coverage from 5% to 6.9%. Conditional on all recommendations contained in the scoped environmental impact study and revegetation plan prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions, Inc., dated January 2022, being implemented through site plan agreement to the satisfaction of the town of Huntsville. Any comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. All right. Kelsey, we're on to our last one at 238 North Drive.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just prepare my screen. Great. I believe you all can see that.
Yep.
So thank you again, Mr. Chair. Through you, the subject property is located at 238 North Drive. The lot is designated waterfront and is zoned shoreline residential 1. The application has been submitted to permit the construction of a detached 2-story garage. A minor variance is required to decrease the interior side yard setback from 6 meters to 2.3 meters for the detached 2-story garage, and to increase the accessory lot coverage from 5% to 5.3%. Committee granted a minor variance for a 1-story garage in the same location on January 18th, 2022. Through the approval of site minor variance application A43-2021. However, it was noted following the approval that the proposed garage was meant to be a 2-story structure. Although the garage will meet the height limitations in the zoning bylaw, due to the change of the 2-story change to a 2-story building, a new minor variance was required. It's just illustrating the setback. To recap, the garage is proposed in a portion of the property south of the laneway, where the budding properties have no development or habitable structures, and the garage will be compliant with all other setbacks. Additional vegetation between the property line and the proposed garage is recommended to provide additional screening and shall be implemented through site plan control shall the minor variance be approved. A condition has also been added to ensure no habitable space will be within the detached garage. Looking at the official plan, the proposal is expected to result in minimal visual impacts from the water, as the garage is screened by existing vegetation and trees. And to reiterate, the height will also remain at 7 meters. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act and to the Lake Vernon Association. No objections were received on this new circulation. The application would appear to conform with the intent of the official plan and the provincial policy statement. The application also appears to satisfy the 4 tests of a minor variance. Therefore, staff are recommending approval. Thank you so much, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much. I will go to the applicant or the representative to make any comments.
The applicant or the representative are reminded to use the raise hand button to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I do see one hand raised. A reminder to please have your microphone and video if possible turned on before you begin speaking, and please confirm your name and mailing address.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I'm the applicant's agent, Les Hess at 11 James Street, Seguin, Ontario, P2A0B6. Again, thanks to Kelsey for the presentation. There's the one point that I'm not sure if you mentioned or not, that we did have a letter of support as well from one of the neighboring properties. And aside from that, I'm just available for any further questions.
Wonderful. Thanks very much. So if you can mute yourself and take your video down, but stay with us. And I'm going to go to the members of the public if there's any questions.
Members of the public are reminded to use the raise hand button to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I see no hands raised.
All right, committee members, any comments or questions? All right, I've got a motion then. Moved by Brandon Stapleton, seconded by Jason Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that minor variance application A06-2022 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsections 3.1.6 and 3.1.15.3b of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P in order to decrease the eastern interior side yard setback from 6 meters to 2.3 meters for a 57.2 square meter detached two-story garage, and increase the accessory lot coverage from 5% to 5.3%. Conditional on no habitable space being permitted within the detached garage, the owner maintaining existing vegetation on site, the owner revegetating the shoreline buffer, and the owner maintaining or establishing a 2-meter wide tree buffer area between the proposed garage and the eastern interior side yard setback to the satisfaction of the town of Huntsville to be implemented through site plan control. Any last comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Wonderful. All right, thanks, Kelsey. Now that all comments have been received, I declare these public meetings respecting the above applications to be concluded. So moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Helena Renwick. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 9:34 a.m. All in favor? And that's carried.